Well, good Monday evening. Meteorologist Stewart here. Thank you for joining us on Hurricane Hub Live. This is our weeknight show. Every night at 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday, we come here on 13 News Now Plus, update you on what's going on in the tropics. Of course, we've got things that have been fairly quiet in the Atlantic as we've gone for this hurricane season, but things remain active out in the Pacific, and those are our tropic topics here on this Monday evening. Again, we're not expecting any development in the Atlantic Ocean over the next 7 days. There have been a few waves that have been coming off the coast of Africa, but really nothing has really spun up over the past couple of weeks. And it looks like things will remain quiet again for the next several days, but the Pacific remains active. Earlier it was the Eastern Pacific, now it's the Central Pacific with two storms just south of Hawaii, a hurricane and a tropical storm, and two other areas in the Central and Eastern Pacific that we're watching for some potential development as well. Now, as we take a look again at the Atlantic hurricane season, starts on June 1st, runs through November 30th, and we're right here. We're about 2 months in, we're about a third of the way through the Atlantic hurricane season, but the peak is September 10th, and you can see really once we get into the month of August how things really start to ramp up. See here for the first 2 months, over the last 100 years or so, when we take a look at some of these records again, you can see generally 10 to 20 storms total, but things really start to ramp up as we get into the month of September. So a ways to go before we get to the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season, but things will probably start to get a little more active if history shows us anything here as we go through the month of August. So let's talk about what's going on in the Atlantic, and it's not a lot. Some waves here coming off the coast of Africa, and there are some thunderstorms out there, but nothing really organized. We're not seeing that center of circulation. We're not seeing anything right now that poses any potential for development over the next 7 days. One thing we are noticing, another big batch of some very dry air and Saharan dust coming in here off the coast of Africa. Southern part where we are seeing those clouds, that's where we're not seeing that dry air. So we are seeing some of those thunderstorms, but again, we're not seeing any kind of circulation, seeing some monsoon rains down here through parts of South America, but that's really it here through the Atlantic. Gulf of Mexico, fairly quiet as well, with just a few clusters of thunderstorms moving through, but no real organized systems out there. The one thing that we will be very concerned about, though, is the Gulf of Mexico is very, very warm. Those water temperatures are up into the upper 80s and low 90s. So once we get here a little bit later on through the hurricane season, we will see that potential for development and possibly some rapid development just because the water temperatures are so very warm. But again, we're not expecting too much over the next 7 days. Again, are watching some of those waves come off the coast of Africa, but a couple more back here. It'll be several days before they emerge off the west coast of Africa, move here into the eastern Atlantic, around the Cabo Verde Islands. But again, quiet for now, so we're not expecting any tropical development over the next 7 days. That's in the Atlantic. Totally different story in the Pacific. It's been a very active season so far for the Eastern Pacific, and now we're getting into the Central Pacific, where we have two tropical systems that are out there. We have a hurricane, and now we have a brand new tropical storm that formed this afternoon here, still south of Hawaii, so it's not going to pose any threat to the Big Islands, but we will get some of those swells coming in from this hurricane. This is Hurricane Iona. Right now, winds of 75 miles per hour, so it's a minimal hurricane, gust to 90. It is moving to the west at 10 miles per hour, again, 870 miles south-southeast of Honolulu. So again, it's not going to cause any impacts along the islands, but it is expected to strengthen into a Category 2 hurricane as we go through Tuesday, and then eventually start to weaken as it moves off towards the west by the end of the week and into the weekend. So that's our one hurricane, and then just behind it, we have another tropical storm. This is Keli. Winds right now of 40 miles per hour. And again, this is sort of following in the wake of our hurricane, so it's not going to last very long, moving to the west again at around 10 miles per hour. As winds of 40 might get up to 45 before it starts to weaken off into a depression. So this is the Central Pacific. Different group of names for the Central Pacific as opposed to the Eastern Pacific. And of course, the Western Pacific, there are typhoons and a different set of names there as well. So 3 sets of names for tropical systems in the Pacific. The Eastern Pacific, which most people are more familiar with. There are only about 8 or 9 names here on one set of lists here through the Central Pacific. Again, most of them Hawaiian in origin. Polynesian, and then once you get into the Western Pacific again, you get into those typhoons. So that's what's going on as far as the Central Pacific. And then one other cluster of thunderstorms here again is Honolulu, has the potential of maybe some development. But as we look here off the coast of Mexico, get into the higher odds of maybe something developing over the next couple of days, as where everything is in here shaded in red. A possible development as the storm moves off towards the north and west. This is that development zone here inside this sort of oblong oval that is down here. And most of the storms so far this year in the Pacific have been just off the coast of Mexico. A couple have gotten closer and came close to Baja, and eventually some of that moisture moved up into the southwest. But right now it looks like this storm, if it does develop over the coming days, would likely, at least at this point, stay off the coast of Mexico or any influences there through Central America. So that's what's going on in the Pacific. Again, a lot more active compared to the Atlantic. So we want to talk about our Hurricane Hub Live tropical trivia. This one's a little bit of a tougher question, but Hatteras and Oregon inlets, they're believed to have been created by a hurricane. What was the year? Was it 1749, 1846, 1903, or 1933? And again, our coastline here through Virginia and North Carolina has been dramatically impacted by tropical systems and hurricanes. As long as we've been keeping history, of course, we've talked, Tim talked last week about the hurricane that impacted George Washington's home and up through Central America. And we know that Willoughby Spit here in Hampton Roads was formed by a couple of different hurricanes over time. So the Outer Banks of North Carolina, they've been battered for centuries. The graveyard of the Atlantic, they're just off the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And we do believe that two of the inlets, Hatteras Inlet and Oregon Inlet, were created by a very powerful hurricane. What year was it? Was it 1749, 1846, 1903, or 1933? And of course, we'll have the answer to that question tomorrow night here on Hurricane Hub Live. And this is just a reminder that you can scan the QR code that will be on your screen here in a moment to download the 13 News Now Hurricane Guide. It has information on supplies you need, everything you need to know to get ready for this 2025 hurricane season. Again, it has been quiet in the Atlantic for now, but we do expect as we get here later into the season that things will get a little bit more active. It is expected and forecast to be a very active hurricane season. So we'll be back here all week, 8 o'clock, Monday through Friday, Hurricane Hub Live, tracking the tropics right here on 13 News Now Plus.